Hey everybody, this is Captain Frugal reporting for duty, giving you my weekly comic book review. So sit back and enjoy.
Captain Frugal, telling the truth, strumming chords, uncovering groove, comic panels, game reviews, rocking riffs and six-string blues. What's the verdict is it rad? Did it crash? Is it bad?
Alright everybody, for those of you that know the drill, I go over a bunch of comic books for the week that I chose to read. Now I didn't have time to read everything, so if I missed something you think I should have read, let me know in the comments below. Also, you may disagree with me on some of my choices. If that's the case, that's alright. Let me know below. Let's just try to keep it civil. My goal is to bring back the old schoolyard days, where we would be in discussing what hero could beat who or what comic book was good and not. And I come armed with my trusty notes, so you'll hear the paper rattle because I do it a little bit old school. I do my grading on a scale of 0 through 10, 7 being average as a 70%. So I'm using schoolyard grading. But that's not all. I also use the League of Comics Geeks to give you other people's views as well as a brief overview of the comic book as well. So let's jump right in. Welcome back everybody to my weekly comic book review, where we get together like we're in a virtual comic shop and discuss comics. And I'm going to discuss something really quick that I want to get out of the way. If you go into a comic shop, would you go in and without talking to anybody just go in and start yelling at them and calling them names? No, the answer is no. And sometimes people come in with disingenuous arguments, and I don't like to have to remove people from the virtual comic shop, but I had to do that last week because I had a person come in and they lied right off the bat. They started lying for their conversation. They said, I came here for a comic book review, and then first thing is you didn't review a comic. I didn't expect that. And so they got all pissy with me. And then they posted another post that I removed calling me a slur. Then they try to act like they're in good faith. So here it is. The first thing they come into discussion is with a lie, with bad intent. And they expected me to have a conversation. That's like going into a comic shop and just yelling at people. Now, when I said you knew what to expect when you came into this weekly comic book review because of the title as well as the thumbnail. And they played dumb to that. They're like, no, I didn't. So let me tell you something right here. The title of the video was DC Comics Writer Fired After Fan Backlash. Why I'm Done with This Comic, Weekly Comics Review. So right there is an idea of what you're getting into. It was a popular thing. And on the thumbnail, it's in bright red. I refuse to read this with a yellow background on that on top of a back panel of Red Hood #1 with the reviews. Now I understand maybe you couldn't see well enough the Red Hood comic on there in the back, but their excuse too was, well, I couldn't read the thumbnail. And then they complained about its readability. First of all, just a little marketing lesson. Red is the most easily seen and understood and bright popping color that attracts attention. And that's a marketing lesson. Marketing 101. So they came in firing hot that they acted like they couldn't read the thumbnail, which is blatantly obvious to read. So then countering that, they're like, oh, I couldn't read it, blah, blah, blah. I said baloney and called them out. And so I told them, look, I even used SEO checkers. I've recently started using vidIQ. I use other AI too, just to see what its thoughts are, because he said it was unreadable. And everything gave the thumbnail a perfectly fine thing. The only thing it said, it might struggle reading Red Hood information in the background. But once again, you read DC Comics Writer Fired After Backlash, and then I refuse to read this. Hello, wake up. So they came in disingenuous, and then they said, well, I ran it in an SEO checker, and it said it was bad. They lied twice, because then they even said they used the same one I used. And so everything they did was disingenuous, and at that point, I had enough. I said, I'm done, and I blocked them. Because they just had to have the last word. There they go. They have it. So my point is this. We can have a back and forth discussion, but let's keep it civil. You could say, I don't agree with you on this concept, do that. But they came in firing hot, calling me names and lying. And everything they said was proven to be a lie. And another person here in the chat, in the comments section, said the same thing. They SEO checked it too and said, you're completely lying there. So I just want to put that up front here. Come in here with good faith. We can have a nice conversation in good faith. Calling me phobes and everything else because you disagree with a viewpoint that I have,
is not what you do. Instead, discuss the topic. Don't come in hot with a disingenuous premise in the first place. And that's what they did. They seen the headline and they came in just to attack me. And I can tell based on the numbers. And by the way, thank you. You helped my analytics and got me a lot of views. So if you're watching this right now, I gave you a ban. I might let you back in and you know who you are to discuss things, but I figured you needed some time to calm down so you don't make a fool of yourself. So come on into the virtual comic shop and let's have a good discussion. Sorry for that long lead in, but let's talk about comics now, shall we? I do have allergies, so please bear with me there, okay? The first book I want to talk about is The Ultimates, number 16. It has 680 ratings, very positive score with a 4.4 from League of Comics Geeks. I didn't like it as much as they did. I gave the book a 7. The writer's Den's camp and artist is Juan Vergara, and from the skies to the streets, the new Ultimates, the maker is only 3 months away, and time is running out. But the Ultimates network is bigger than ever now that they've inspired more and more people to join their cause. A can't miss street level adventure from the Ultimates. And here's the thing, I think it is a can miss, but you know, it is what it is. I don't like where this issue is going in terms of making it okay to vandalize things and simple sabotage. I'm going to quote that, yeah. Minor vandalism and simple sabotage. I don't think it's right to destroy things that don't belong to you. Now, maybe they're destroying things that didn't particularly say that directly are owned by the evil entity, but I think you're seeing where this is. This writer is trying to institute and influence people about social things into this book. And it seems like the writer is okay with vandalism, like burning a building. And their excuse to make it okay was, well, they made sure there was nobody in it. Well, first of all, you could still hurt people, so I'm not a big fan. The art was good, though, but I'm really mixed about this issue and the writer's political agenda behind it, potentially. Are they, trying to say, hey, it's okay to do this stuff, burn people's stuff down? And then maybe I'm just too close to it. And so I struggled with this book, so I'd like to know your view on this. Am I reading too much into this book? Is it okay, or are you reading the same thing that I'm reading? This person's sort of saying it's okay to do these certain things of destroying other people's stuff and things because they think they're in the right. I'm curious about that. I'd really like to know your thoughts on that. By the way, I didn't read every comic book yet this month that I wanted to read. There's a couple I just didn't have time. I hope to get to later. The next book I want to talk about is The Incredible Hulk, number 29, 147 ratings, 3.9 score. You know what? On League of Comics Geeks, I gave the book a 7.5. I thought it was strong. Writer Philip Kennedy Johnson, artist Adam Gorham. And we have another issue with the Hulk that's being trapped by his enemies. He gets tricked into the subterranean graveyard by who he thinks is Betty Ross, but it's not. I will say, cover's good. I like the cover. Definitely. There's some alternate covers that are okay. But I would like to see Betty, though, back to normal. This version of Betty, even though this wasn't Betty here, I'm not a big fan of that. And I also don't care for much this new spin on how Gamma with the Hulks and the origin, sort of messing with the Hulk and its origin. And I don't know, I'm more of a traditional Hulk fan. I enjoy this dark spin, but let's look at it in this way. We've had rocket ship Hulk. We've had, before that, Hulk that was unkillable pretty much. And then we're back to this dark thing of Hulk, supernatural again, which I find it's okay once in a while, but we've had this now different Hulks for years. I sort of think I want to go back to the traditional Hulk again, but that's just me. Hulk gets fooled in this issue by none other than who he thinks is Betty. There is some good brutal action here, and the art style really works for this issue. That's why I'm not complaining. I gave the book 7.5. Looking at other people's reviews, I see a lot of 4 stars and things, but let's read this one here that only gave it 2.5 stars. I want to see why they had a different opinion. This would have been obviously been way cooler if Klein had been on the interior art duties. The artist in this issue was okay. Some things look good, but knowing we could have had Klein instead just makes me sad. I get that. That's an issue I've always had with comic books. You look at that cover and it's to draw you in to buy something. That's a marketing tool. And then you open it up and the art's nothing like what you see on the outside. I really have never been a fan by that. But let's be honest, this has been a thing going on in comic books for decades now. The interior art is usually not what's on the cover. We have been meandering for 29 issues. This should have been issue 10. So they're saying the story is drawn out. The whole run felt like a slog to get through, like PKJ was way too much in love with his OCs and the one and only idea he had. Okay. So as you see that person thinking this story is dragging on way too long. Otherwise, we get a lot of good scores on here. As you see, I like to share alternate views. By the way, I didn't share the views on the ultimates because I see a lot of, they're all very positive. I did see a 3-star and things, but I want to know your opinion on that one. I don't want to influence you with anybody else's opinion. I want to see where this is going, because I just think maybe I'm way off. Next one I want to talk about is G.I. Joe, issue number 11. 4.2 score, very positive with 158 ratings. I gave the book a very good score too with an 8. The cover's pretty cool. We got Major Blood about to stab Baroness right in the eye. There's some alternate covers that are, they're okay. And a couple retailer exclusives that look pretty cool. Writer is Joshua Williamson. Artist is Andra, whatever. The final showdown of this issue with Major Blood, an eye for an eye. I tell you, this is cool. Hound saves Clutch right from the beginning. Saves his butt from Cobra. He is caught, and boom, the Transformers save the day, right? Baroness, we get Baroness versus Major Blood in this issue. That cover's not a trick. It's a good fight, by the way. We also get Raptor versus CoverGirl. We don't get to see much of that fight, though. Overall, this book has some decent art, good action, and it has some good story progression. This really is, I think, a great series. Even if you weren't a G.I. Joe fan, I strongly recommend checking this one out. Now, I'm looking through League of Comics Geeks, and I see lots of 5 stars, but here is 3-star. Very simple. Major Blood versus Madam Crip. I don't get that at all, but okay. If you know what that meant, that person meant by that, please let me know. That was the lowest review I see here. Here's another one that's 4-star. Pretty good finale to this arc. I liked it. The arc wasn't as strong as I would like to have loved it to be, but it's not bad. I'm glad that Hound finally got to do something more than 3 panels in an issue, though. The whole scene with Destro and Cobra Commander was great. I hope we get a lot more of that stuff. Really looking forward to the next arc. That says pretty darn positive here. Here we have a 3.5 star. Don't know what happened with the art on this issue. Usually a big fan of Andrea Milana's work, but most of the panels felt rushed here. Really liked the story, but I was a bit bummed out by the lack of details and simplified art. So that's about the worst I could find on this book, to be honest with you. A lot of good scores. Now, the next one I'm going to talk about is quite surprising. I think we've had quite a turnaround in this for people's views, and that's The Amazing Spider-Man, issue number 12. 367 ratings, 3.7 score. I give it a 7.4, so I do think it's improving, but I do notice something, and I think this is really important to mention. The amount of people rating this book is considerably smaller than what it was. So I tend to believe that this book, Spider-Man, has lost a lot of its audience. It's going to take a lot of work to get people back. And I think it's going to take some exceptional writing, exceptional art, exceptional storytelling in general. Hopefully we can get that. In this book, we have the writer Joe Kelly, penciler Ed McGuinness. And I know Ed McGuinness was an acquired taste. I liked his work on Hulk, and for some reason, I like his work on Spider-Man. So anyway, we have this issue. Is Spider-Man gone too far? Yeah, some of his allies come to stop him because they don't know what's going on there, right? So that's an interesting take. I'm not a big fan of all these alternate versions. You know, we've got Silk, lame Spider-Boy, you know, and all these other characters, but yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, Osborn grows in this issue to appreciate what Peter has to deal with while being Spider-Man. I think that's my favorite part of this issue. He's starting to realize and really, I mean, not just realize, but gain more respect for what Peter's went through and the challenges that are at hand and what he sacrifices to do what he does. I also like, as I said, McGuinness's art in this. It reminds me a bit of Ron Friends' art, and I've always been a big fan of Ron Friends. So maybe if there's a connection there, let me know. I'd love to hear it. But there's only a little bit of story progression in this issue, and there's a decent amount of action, though. But when I look at the scores, here's where I get a lot of differences. I'm going to read some, just part of this 4.5 star review. First off, we have the conspiracy theorist guy from the start of the run who was there when Hellgate debuted. It's a mostly comedic scene where Jonah is interviewing him on his podcast. While most of what the guy is saying is likely to be purely for humor, I think somewhat it says, blah, blah, blah. In other words, he's going on about that. And that's an interesting point there, too, that I didn't mention. You know, and we get to see more of Jonah and how he's handling this situation. I think that's good. I'm going to look at this one that says contains spoilers and only gave it a 3 stars. So I'm only going to read part of it because it's a big paragraph. ASM this time, all right for what it is, but its premise I fundamentally think is very lame. But let's get into it. You know what? I agree there. It's fine for what it is. I do not like the major story arc concept here. They said Ed McGuinness' style continues to be the one I like. Yep, and so they're there too. But I'm going to go to their negatives. They gave a lot of positives, so let's be fair there. Once again, the concept was done so much more interestingly with more character introspection back in Gold Goblin. Outside of me not just liking the angle of the whole, especially since it was such a point early on that Norman didn't actually do anything, it's a magical lobotomy. But even with that, we have seen the idea done better and delving much deeper into Gold Goblin. Okay, but his concept handled well enough that makes sense. I think it's lamer how the thing that makes Norman decide to talk to is Gwen. Yeah, because he stops the fight because of Gwen. After 15 issues without making it about Gwen's death challenge is just impossible. Not a negative on this, but man, what a bad costume for her when she's a character whose popularity comes entirely from her design. That's a good point. Okay, so I don't like the character design. The Goblin Slayer plot is just more of the one plot with Norman. At least mixing it with Kensley means there's a character I care about involved, even if it makes them hypocritical and defeats the point they have otherwise. The other spiders accept Norman as Spidey too fast, especially since almost all of them know the context behind it. The Ben stuff is undermined by the fact that Peter and his friend's friendship collapsing has no weight when it's so artificial. You know, that's a good point. His friends don't seem to be really noticing anything there. So I guess there's some definite reasons to have a dislike for this issue. As I said, though, I think it's on the upswing. Well, you know, it can't all be. Here's a 2-star. I'm only giving part of it. I guess this was the first issue that I didn't completely dislike, but it's still not good by any stretch of imagination. The art does look great, so it seems like a lot of people are agreeing with me. And I'm glad it's just not J.R. Jr. on art, so that's a plus. That's a sad shame, because his art used to be really appreciated. I think, once again, that I think it's due to rushing and getting work done and realizing, hey, this is what I'm getting paid, I have to maximize it. Norman as Spider-Man is such a terrible idea. I don't know how people on here can just hand wave that away and enjoy this issue. The plot is very basic, or pretty basic. Norman tries to fill Peter's shoes and sees how hard it really is. See, that's the part I like. There's a big confrontation with all the other spiders. Good illustration, but ultimately boring. Hobgoblin gets recruited by a cult to take down Norman, too, in this issue. No, he doesn't. Not exactly. It's pretty straightforward. But I can't bring myself to get excited about Norman's time as Spidey and possible future plans for the character if they stick with this direction. Ben also appears, but only as a reminder of how much the supporting cast sucks. Just bring back Peter. Yeah, my biggest issue with this storyline in general is what they're actually doing with Peter Parker and how he's away. We're going to get more of that next issue. So when it's actually focused more on the stuff around what's going on on Earth, I actually like it more. It's the him away in space stuff that I don't care about. But what are your thoughts on this book? I'd really like to know. I wanted to dive into something different outside of Marvel and DC, so I checked out Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Casey Jones, issue number 1. 121 ratings, 4.1 score, very positive. You know what? I gave the book a strong start with a 7.7. Writer is Alex Pecknadell, and an artist is Amansi Nephium. First of all, cover art I think is cool, and it's got some cool alternate art covers as well. This is an interesting start. We get Casey Jones, but they make sure we still get the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle universe with the Turtles are in it. April O'Neil's in it. Now, with that said, I want to say this up front. I have not been reading Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I really don't understand and know any of the bigger story that's going on in the background. So please take that in consideration here. Casey Jones was shot, I guess, by this person, and now he's this D.A. Hale, whoever that is. He's awake now, and he has a second chance at life. And I guess he's been getting watched over by April O'Neil. I guess April's been going out as him, masquerading as him, fighting crime. That I'm not so keen on. That doesn't seem like makes sense. But Casey's hitting the streets anyway. He gets up and does that, even though everybody thinks he's pushing himself too hard. The Turtles say, hey man, what's going on here? Even Raphael is saying, hey, you're overdoing it here. So they think that they're just concerned. And things are only, it says, going to get worse as a new strain of mutagen is starting to changing the shape of New York. And what it is this drug, I guess, that these people can take. It really ups them up in strength or whatever else. There's good art, good action in this. I remember I'm coming at this from a fresh perspective, not really knowing much of anything right now. The enemies have this new drug they're going into, and they're looking into where's this drug coming from. That's an interesting concept. What exactly does this drug do? And also there's another plot that somebody's hunting the citizens, and these are citizens that are mutated and things like that. So it's an interesting overall story, and I'm in it. I think a first issue needs to hook you in and keep you intrigued. I enjoyed the art here, and I'm looking at other people's views, and they're pretty strong scores. I think the lowest scores I see are a 3-star. Here's one. I didn't love this, and a lot of the dialogue bugged me, but I'll keep reading it to see where it goes. I'm going to read a bit of a 4-star review then. Casey Jones is such a caring and loving boy. Failure. I love him already so much. Okay. Yeah, okay, they're saying that, he's trying hard, they love him, but he fails at things. Well, I think that's what makes a good character. We can't always succeed. And speaking of that, if you find yourself failing at anything, remember, you haven't truly failed until you give up. Okay? Keep going at it. Now, that doesn't mean learn from it. If you find you made mistakes, learn from those and don't repeat those again and find a way to be successful. Okay? For example, lying in the comments section, get called out and proven wrong. Don't double down on your lie so other people prove you wrong. Instead, say, you know what, I screwed up, I shouldn't have done that, and move on. Because we can all get along from that. All right, the next one I want to talk about real quick is World's Finest issue number 43, because I know I'm running long on this video. 203 views, 3.8 score, mostly positive, and I gave the book a 7. Might not be the popular opinion on this one here. So anyway, the writers Mark Waid, artists Sean Cazares, and Adriana Gutierrez. I will say, one of the artists, I like their art better in this issue in the other. First of all, the cover bugs me right from the start. The coloring and stuff, I don't like that. The alternate covers don't really catch my attention much either. And I think part of it's me, so bear with me here. Bizarro world on the brink. Yes, it's continuing. Bizarro world is changing and morphing and gonna explode, and my heroes are trying to stop it. I'm just, to being upfront, I've never been a big fan of Bizarro. And this whole story arc just didn't do it for me. This is not a slight against the writer, even though I'm openly not a fan of him as a person. But if you've seen my other scores, I've given him high scores when they earn it. I just don't like the cover either. I don't care for the interior art style for the majority of the book. The Bizarro take on established characters is interesting, though. I like that part there. And the story is coming to an end in this issue. I don't think overall it was bad. I just personally couldn't get into this story. And I see a lot of 4 and 5-star reviews, nothing really bad. So the lowest one I see here is a 3-star. Yeah, the arc didn't really do anything for me. And that's where I fall in. So I think maybe I'm the minority here. What are your thoughts on this? Is this a great story and I am the minority? And once again, that's okay. It's okay to have different opinions on things, people. Okay, we don't have to come in hot. The next book, I've only got 2 more to go, or actually 1 more to go, sorry. This is it. New Avengers, number 4, 214 ratings with a 3.8 score. I gave the book a strong 7.8, and the writer Sam Humphries, artist Tigo Palma. First of all, the cover is, yeah, I get it though. It's an homage to a past cover. I've never been a big fan of the Illuminati team. Has some alternate covers too that are, they're okay. Anyway, the team is tested when the Killuminati, in turn, it turned on one of their own against them. They turn one of their own against them. What I mean by that is, gotta be able to speak, they take over Submariner and set him against this new team of Avengers, which really were the Thunderbolts, but they changed the name to Avengers because it's more popular, and they did that because, well, Bruce Banner said, oh, yeah, you're actually the Avengers. Okay, whatever it is. During this issue, Namor struggles to break free of control. And overall, decent art. We have Girlverine, of course, versus Namor, and that was fun. But what I think is an interesting thing, even though I'm not a big fan of her using the same name, and that's not because she's female, I'm not being a sexist. I don't like when heroes run around the same name, like there's multiple Spider-Mans. I mean, it dilutes the character in the first place and what makes them special. But I do like here is that after the fight, Namor calls her Wolverine. He's in other words, she earned his respect. And I thought that was good writing there. We also got to see a flash of Flash, pun intended, a flash of Flash Thompson struggling to keep the Carnage symbiote in check. I like that. The Black Widow in this issue knows how to keep the Winter Soldier calm, too. So, yeah, I'm going to have to go talk to my wife and tell her I need to be calmed down. If you read the story, you know. All right. Overall, though, Namor, I think, was being very heroic in this too. He's realizing, hey, I could potentially kill people. And he's telling girl Wolverine to kill him, which is, female Wolverine that he respected and called Wolverine. So really I think this was a solid issue. I liked it. I enjoyed it very well. I like the character progression. I'm not even a big fan of a lot of these characters, but it worked. Sometimes you just got to get the right group of characters. And I'm looking at the reviews, and I see tons of 4 stars, but here I'm scrolling down and I see some bad ones. So I'm going to read just a little bit of some of these. 2-star review. I laughed way too hard at Namor's face on the second to last page. Oh yeah. By the way, Black Widow, this is a great little scene here. Black Widow asked, what would you do if you were Reed Richards? And you get a look on Submariner's face that's like, ha 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 ha. And if you know your back history about about Namor in the Fantastic Four, I think you know what Namor would do if he's Reed Richards. And if you know, let me know in the comments. I mean, the look was all you needed. That was a great deep cut, by the way. So I'm going to go down to a 1.5 star. Stephen and Clea apparently now have an open marriage, despite this never being said once during the Doctor Strange run. That is something I dislike. They mentioned it. Clea's pretty much like, oh, we have an open marriage. I can't see that happening. Welcome to another episode of the Writer's Barely Disguised Fetish, where Sam Humphries makes me cringe to death as somehow to write Namor a character which I dislike quite strongly, oddly well. So I agree there. That part I did not like. An open marriage with them. It's never been shown or anything, so... But it is what it is. I think he went hard in the paint to shock value on this. Okay. But as I said, there was some interesting things there. Okay. And definitely worth, as the humor and things. Can you get over that open marriage thing? I didn't appreciate that part either, but you know what? There was a lot of other cool stuff there. 2.5 star review said here, admittedly, haven't been keeping up with it in the symbiotic stuff, but Eddie Brock seems really off to me. Otherwise, is that supposed to be Eddie Brock? Maybe. I think it is. And I said Flash. I apologize. I was wrong. In my head there, I said Flash, but I think they're right. That's Eddie Brock now, not Flash. My mistake. See, we all are human. We all make mistakes. I'd like to say I did that on purpose, but no, I didn't. I screwed up. All right, everybody. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care. Let's be nice to one another. And if you come in here once again with a discrepancy, be open and honest about it. That's perfectly fine. But you don't come in here right off the bat lying about your intentions for coming into a video and then lying about other things to cover your butt right afterwards. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Let's be civil to one another. And the world's rough right now. So find somebody that needs it and show them some love. Thanks, everybody. Until next time, keep it real.